The Mughal Empire is one of the best known phases in medieval Indian history. Before the arrival of the Mughals, it was the Lodi Empire that was in power in most of northern India. The royal Lodi dynasty was of Afghan origin and had ruled North India for nearly a century. Mughal Emperor Babur decisively defeated the Lodi Empire in 1526 and took control of northern India. Babur died soon after in 1530, and his eldest son Humayun inherited his vast Indian empire. Humayun had to fight various powers across the Indian subcontinent. Meanwhile, the Afghans had reorganized themselves. The Afghans in the Indian subcontinent found an unlikely hero in Sher Shah Suri, a man of extraordinary administrative and military abilities. Sher Shah inflicted a series of crushing defeats on Humayun and forced him out of India. Sher Shah ascended to the throne of Delhi in 1540 and established the Suri Empire. Sher Shah did get into conflict with other Indian powers, but successfully prevailed over them. He also made numerous administrative reforms in his empire that made him popular among his subjects. His military campaign in central India in the year 1545, however, had an unlikely conclusion, as the emperor was fatally burned in a gunpowder explosion just before the Afghan victory. The accidental death of Sher Shah Suri had put the future of the Indian subcontinent in a highly uncertain position. Akbarnama is the biography of Mughal Emperor Akbar. That is the source that was extensively used in the preparation of this video documentary. The life of illustrious Emperor Sher Shah Suri came to an end in the unfortunate gunpowder explosion on the 22nd of May, 1545. Sher Shah personally led the siege of Kalinjar Fort in central India. Though victorious, this campaign cost the Afghan emperor his very life. The fort of Kalinjar had been captured by the Afghan forces moments after the tragic accident. At that point, most of the troops of the Suri Empire was stationed at Kalinjar. After the demise of the emperor, the Afghan generals had a complicated task at their hands. They had to find a replacement to their recently deceased king. Sher Shah Suri had two surviving sons, Adil Khan and Jalal Khan. Adil Khan was the favorite of Sher Shah, while it was Jalal Khan who was preferred by the majority of the Afghan generals. A possible reason for this preference was his military abilities and his hard-working nature, which was in sharp contrast to his luxury and pleasure-loving elder brother Adil Khan. On the eventful 22nd of May 1545, Sher Shah's elder son Adil Khan was acting as the governor of Ranthambore, located in eastern Rajputana. This gave him a geographical disadvantage as he was nearly 400 kilometers from Kalinjar. Sher Shah's younger son Jalal Khan at that point was campaigning at Reva in central India. He was about 140 kilometers from Kalinjar, which was the location of utmost significance. The Afghan generals regarded it unwise to leave the throne vacant for too long. Being nearer to Kalinjar, Jalal Khan was invited to reach the spot without delay and take up the throne. Jalal Khan traveled as fast as he possibly could and reached Kalinjar on the 27th of May 1545. He was immediately crowned the king of the Suri Empire. Jalal Khan ascended the throne with the regal name of Islam Shah Suri. Islam Shah Suri was well educated and had a good military experience under his belt. He led the successful Bengal campaign in 1538 in collaboration with the top Afghan generals. Islam Shah also took part in campaigns against the powerful Mughal Empire and had seen action at Chausa and Kannauj in 1539 and 1540 respectively. Following the exit of Mughal Emperor Humayun from the Indian subcontinent, he extended his participation in many of Sher Shah Suri's campaigns, most notably in Raisen and Marwar. It is certain that he had much greater military experience than his elder brother Adil Khan, who was mostly confined to a luxurious life within the walls of his palace. The first royal act of Islam Shah Suri was, as expected, to order the execution of Kirat Singh, the local ruler of Kalinjar, along with a few of his close associates. Next, Islam Shah took a step to win the support of his army. Every soldier was paid 2 months of salary in cash, of which 1 month's salary was given as a reward for their valuable services in the past. The next big move of the new emperor had catastrophic consequences. He had special affection towards the 5,000 soldiers who were a part of his personal troops that he maintained as a prince. Islam Shah announced promotion for each of those men in an attempt to gain their confidence. Some common soldiers were given pretty high positions in the Imperial Afghan army. This imprudent decision highly dissatisfied the old Afghan nobility, and some of them developed support and sympathy for Adil Khan, the elder son of Sher Shah Suri. Meanwhile, a set of crucial developments took place in Rajputana in late 1545 that do deserve a mention. News reached the Rajputs of the sudden instability in the Suri Empire following the death of Sher Shah Suri. The Rajputs learned of the possibilities of a civil war looming large in the Suri Empire. This golden opportunity could not be missed. The Rajputs decided to act and make the most of it. Maldev Rathore, the king of Marwar, came out of hiding with the intention of recovering his capital from the Afghans. Along with his soldiers, Maldev Rathore drove out the Afghan contingent left behind by Sher Shah Suri since 1544. The neighboring kingdom of Mewar soon followed suit. Rana Uday Singh of Mewar, along with his generals, made a surprise attack on the Afghan garrison stationed at Chittor and expelled them from their lands. These two events had a major consequence. The Afghan influence over Rajputana nearly disappeared by late 1545. Coming back to the Suri Empire, the Afghan nobility was divided in opinion, and some secretly went over to the cause of Adil Khan. Islam Shah Suri went back to Agra with the Afghan imperial troops. At the advice of his close advisors, he sent a formal invitation to his brother Adil Khan to arrive at Agra to discuss the partition of their father's empire. Initially happy to receive the proposal, Adil Khan started his journey towards Agra. However, an assassination attempt was soon made on his life, without success, during the journey. Adil Khan discovered to his astonishment that the failed assassination attempt was ordered by none other than his brother himself, the Emperor Islam Shah Suri. Fearing for his life, Adil Khan went back to Ranthambore, where he was expecting greater levels of safety. An uneasy tension prevailed between the two Suri aristocrats. Some Afghan commanders, under the leadership of high-ranking General Khawaz Khan, had fallen out with Islam Shah Suri. They, along with their troops, went over to Adil Khan. Encouraged by their support, Adil Khan proclaimed himself the rightful Suri Emperor and began preparations to attack Agra to claim the throne. Worried at those developments, Islam Shah Suri gathered a big-sized Afghan force at Agra. Their commanders were given the task of dealing with the loyalists of Adil Khan. However, some leaders of that force were won over by Adil Khan, who promised them special privileges in return for their support to gain the throne. The remaining Afghan leaders were left with no choice but to hasten back to Agra with the disappointing piece of news. Islam Shah Suri was outraged to hear of the incident. He realized that he could not afford to take the matter lightly. Rather than risking further defection by sending troops away from the capital, he found it wiser to wait for the enemy to advance. Adil Khan's army was already on the move and likely to engage in a pitched battle. Islam Shah began arranging his defenses and allowed the enemy to come closer. Most Afghan generals, without strong preferences, had followed the policy of sticking to Islam Shah since he was proclaimed the emperor at Kalinjar. This gave Islam Shah a numerical advantage. He had a problem though. Some of his troops were half-hearted in his cause, and their commitment to him was less than enthusiastic. So, Islam Shah decided to adopt a defensive strategy in the upcoming battle. The two armies met near the plains of Mathura, around 90 kilometers from Agra. Adil Khan knew that he had to penetrate the defenses of Islam Shah. That was likely to cause more troops to come over and join his cause. Islam Shah Suri, on the other hand, had to maintain a rigid defense to avoid being overthrown from power. The battle began early morning when Adil Khan decided to assume the offensive. A part of his troops charged at the division of the enemy that was under the command of a general with questionable loyalty towards Islam Shah Suri. But the defenders held their ground for some time, despite taking few casualties and mounting some on the enemy. Islam Shah sent his war elephants to reinforce his division that was under attack. At the approach of the huge beastly creatures, the attacking party lost their enthusiasm and retreated back to their original position. Adil Khan's attack failed to break the enemy lines. Neither side made a move for some time. Neither side was willing to risk an offensive. Islam Shah consulted his close advisors and formed a strategy that he believed was likely to facilitate his victory. Under the orders of Islam Shah Suri, one of his trusted generals charged at the enemy with his troops. The two armies clashed, with men falling on both sides. After putting up a gallant fight for some time, Islam Shah's trusted general retreated back to his original position in apparent fear. Adil Khan's engaging troops charged at the retreating enemy. Exhilarated with success, they charged too far. It was too late when they realized that it was a trap laid by the enemy. Islam Shah then ordered few of his divisions to charge at the enemy troops that was now too far away to be supported by its fellow regiments. The isolated division of Adil Khan was encircled from all sides and found itself trapped. Disaster followed for Adil Khan's troops that were isolated from its comrades. Some laid down their weapons and applied for surrender, while some managed to escape the battlefield. The rest were mercilessly annihilated by the imperial troops. In an attempt to turn this momentum into a decisive victory, Islam Shah ordered a general advance of his entire army. The troops of Adil Khan had been disheartened at the disaster suffered by their fellow comrades. Now they looked up and saw the overwhelmingly large number of enemy troops charging at them. They quailed at the prospect. Some of the generals offered submission and surrendered to Islam Shah Suri after refusing to be a part of the losing side any longer. Fearing his capture, Adil Khan was left with just one choice. He escaped towards the west with his personal troops. Some generals who were intensely loyal to Adil Khan joined him in this flight. Islam Shah Suri had come out victorious. He held a grand coronation ceremony at Agra to proclaim his accession as the undisputed emperor of the Indian subcontinent. Despite his victory, the throne of Islam Shah Suri was not entirely secure. His brother Adil Khan had managed to escape, and the possibility of him making a comeback to challenge the imperial throne could not be ruled out. Islam Shah also had potential threat from the Afghan generals, who were ardent supporters of his rival Adil Khan. One of them was Khawaz Khan, who still commanded a formidable number of troops. Khawaz Khan had fled to Alwar in Rajputana after the failed enterprise near Mathura. Other than dealing with Adil Khan, the pretender to the Suri throne, Islam Shah also needed to neutralize the Afghan generals, who were firm supporters of Adil Khan. By accomplishing those two objectives, Islam Shah could put an end to any possible future challenge to his throne. Under the suggestion of his close advisors, imperial search parties were sent to discover the current whereabouts of Adil Khan. Islam Shah also sent a large Afghan force to crush Khawaz Khan, who was located at Alwar and was a loyal supporter of Adil Khan. Khawaz Khan could not hope to match the strength of the huge imperial army with the small numbers of his troops. So, he fled towards the north and looked for shelter. He was soon welcomed by the local king of the Kumaun Hills, that is located in present-day Uttarakhand. With Khawaz Khan on the run, Islam Shah Suri now turned his attention towards Adil Khan. He wanted to be done with him once and for all. However, his spies failed to trace down the location of the fugitive prince. There were rumors that the pretender to the Suri throne had abandoned his troops and had relocated with his close followers and his valuable material possessions, apparently having given up the aspirations to claim his father's throne in the future. Though not certain, Adil Khan is said to have escaped to Patna in eastern India. Thereafter, he mysteriously disappeared from recorded history. It is likely that he spent the rest of his life in luxury but in obscurity. It is likely that he would have lived with constant fear of being tracked down by the imperial spies. That could have earned him a death sentence or a lifelong imprisonment. History, though, fails to provide an information on his future whereabouts, indicating that he managed to evade his pursuers, succeeding in maintaining a blissful existence. Having failed to capture Adil Khan, Islam Shah Suri could not end the theoretically possible threat to his throne in the future. His wrath fell on the Afghan officers who had previously joined Adil Khan in the latter's bid for the throne. Their treacherous conduct led to an open battle near Agra and could well have cost Islam Shah his throne. The emperor conducted a trial for the officers who had supported his rival Adil Khan during the failed fratricidal struggle. Detailed inquiry was launched for each of those officers, and the trials were attended personally by Islam Shah and his ministers. Most officers maintained that they were forced into the rebellious enterprise, and that they were too powerless to resist. Those who were able to substantiate their claims were given a moderate punishment. They were demoted in their ranks, but still allowed to serve the army. Most of the officers who failed to provide a satisfactory explanation were subjected to imprisonment. The major ringleaders of the misconduct were identified and were meted out the harshest possible penalty. The emperor ordered them to be tied up near the cannons and blown up by gunpowder. This inhuman act instilled fear in the minds of a section of the Afghan nobility and facilitated their growing distrust towards Islam Shah Suri. Years earlier, a general called Hebat Khan Niazi was appointed the governor of Punjab by Sher Shah Suri. By this point, he had firmly established his authority in the wealthy western province. Soon, he received news of the growing instability in the Suri Empire. Encouraged by the unpopularity of the new emperor, he raised a standard of rebellion against Islam Shah Suri and declared independence from Delhi and Agra. This led to several governors in the other smaller western regions to follow suit, and they declared autonomy from the Suri Empire as well. The governors of the western provinces, who had recently declared independence, came to an agreement. They recognized the governor of Punjab, Haibat Khan Niazi, as their virtual leader. They also invited the fugitive Afghan general Khawaz Khan, a sworn enemy of Sher Shah Suri, to join them. Khawaz Khan accepted the offer, and the anti-Islam Shah coalition gained strength. The leaders of the coalition were discussing their plans against the Suri Empire. Emperor Sher Shah Suri was made aware of this growing threat. He received information of the powerful coalition that was beginning to take shape against him. He had to deal with the rebellious governor of Punjab, Haibat Khan Niazi, and his partners in the coalition, most notably Khawaz Khan, one of the favorite generals of the former Emperor Sher Shah Suri. Islam Shah also learned of the existing possibilities of the alliance between the Punjab governor and the Mughal rulers of Afghanistan that would further strengthen the coalition against him. This was a growing threat that needed immediate attention. Islam Shah decided to act before it was too late, and before the situation would grow out of recovery. Islam Shah ordered the mobilization of the Suri army in early 1547. He decided to take personal command of his troops and try and teach a once-and-for-all lesson to the rebels in the western parts of his empire. Islam Shah Suri had succeeded Sher Shah Suri in 1545. He managed to decisively defeat his brother Adil Khan, that has reasonably secured his throne. But now he is experiencing challenge from the rather unexpected quarters. The governors of the western parts of his empire had rebelled against him and had formed a coalition. Will the rebel coalition be able to defeat Islam Shah and overthrow the Suri royal dynasty in the Indian subcontinent? Will Islam Shah be able to get the better of the rebels? What will be the future of the Suri Empire? You can find out by watching the next episode of this documentary series. Thank you for watching.